talk about sweetness itself. And he told it, watch out for the ACC.
Yep.
Remember how emphatic Jim Larinaga was when he came on the show last week, and he said, you know what? I've never heard him express this kind of anger.
Frustration for sure, yep.
Wow. That the ACC was being dissed by the NCAA committee, and what do they know, right? He's orchestrated the Hurricanes into one of the Cinderella stories now, only eclipsed maybe by St. Peter's. You believed in this team, Jim Larinaga, and the ACC, and congratulations. How much fun is this?
Oh, right to the moon.
He was dancing. That was great.
That's Jackie Gleason there, Defo, and that's what the ACC has done. Oh, right to the moon with the three teams in the Sweet 16.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning once again, everybody. Great to be with you here on the Defo Show. Jeff Deforrest, one Mike Lubitz here on ION Channel, Jack Namer's fabulous organization, streaming video and audio all around the world. And it should be a good time today as we have some very special guests going to join us here on the program. And it was 3 in the Sweet 16, 2 in the Final Four out of the ACC, and they're going to clash in one of the semifinal games. That was Jim Larinaga that you heard the clip from, and Jim has been gracious enough again to consent to join us. He was at the Heat game last night, Jim Larinaga, as the Miami Heat beat the Sacramento Kings and snapped their 4-game losing streak. That's a whole nother story that we're going to address here on the program with the great Ethan Scoop Skolnick, who is as much a Heat insider as anybody that we know. There's a local writer here named Ira Winderman. He's been covering the Heat since their inception, since the very first second of their conception. Unbelievable when Ted Harrison said, "Yeah, I'll give you the money. What do you need, Zev?" I know Zev Buffman, a theater guy, and Ted Harrison, they got it together. They handed the reins to Shifty Chaffel, Lou Chaffel, and Billy Cunningham, who I think is going to be the old school guy. It's a little before Larinaga's time, but Billy Cunningham, one of the New York legends, and one of the greatest players ever to come out of the New York City area, played at Erasmus High School, which I would imagine Jim Larinaga has some stories about his. He was Archbishop Malloy, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that his school, Archbishop Malloy? And, of course, Erasmus, one of the fabled New York City basketball programs. So I think I'm going to throw Billy Cunningham out there, but does that go against the premise of what we've been doing with Jim Larinaga over the many years we've had him on the show? Since he's been here at the University of Miami, where we throw out a completely obscure New York basketball name, or a somewhat obscure name. What do you think? I mean, is that like too easy?
Yes.
Throw out some kind of illumination on Billy Cunningham? And he played high school ball before Jim Larinaga was really like a high school star there a few years before. But I don't know. What do you think, Lubie, for lack of a better guy?
I know who Billy Cunningham is.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to think about that one here. We have a little time to develop that. Jim's going to join us about 8 o'clock today. We switched a few things around. We normally feature Harvey Fialkoff, who was covering the Miami Open in tennis. Was looking forward to talking to Harvey because, Lubie, what has been the big complaint about tennis? It was kind of like boxing for many, many years. Everybody always said, well, geez, without some kind of compelling heavyweight champion, and the Klitschko's as brave and virtuous as they are in defending the Ukraine. I mean, can you imagine? These guys are multi-zillionaires. They made a lot of money boxing. I mean, they were just knocking out stiff after stiff for years and years, and it was the most boring time in the history of the heavyweight division. Not necessarily taking anything away from the Klitschko's. Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv, was, I think, overall a better fighter, although more awkward than Vladimir. Vladimir was pretty straightforward. I mean, what you saw was what you got from Vladimir Klitschko. Unfortunately, Vladimir had a little bit of a glass jaw, Lubie. I mean, as fierce and tenacious looking as he was in the ring, and he was like Dr. Steelhammer, right? He would hit you with that right hand. I threw a left, but he would hit you with that right hand, and that was it. It was lights out. It was no need to count. That's it. Joe Cortez has waved this one off. It's over. But Vitaly was generally judged to be a better fighter, a better heavyweight over the years. He had some real battles, and some awkward stuff happened during the course of his boxing career. But they dominated for years, and everybody said, well, that's killing the game, man. There are no good heavyweights. And then we started to get into Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, And while it wasn't Ali Frazier and George Foreman and some of the greats that were around at the time, I mean, Ernie Shavers was like a secondary consideration. He would have been knocking these stiffs out one after another if he was around today. You know, they always talk about, and it's tough to compare eras because the athletes have developed exponentially in terms of speed and height and just, overall ability. You're looking at athleticism today like we've never seen. And, it was evident in the boxing game. You have some really terrific competitors, but there was always that thought that without a compelling heavyweight, there would, be no reason to watch this sport. And, I mean, it's true in other areas, is it not? Where you don't have an American presence in tennis,
No.
and that's been the theory. And so everybody's saying, well, nobody cares about tennis because there are no great Americans. I mean, we had Connors and McEnroe and Pete Sampras. I mean, some great great players there. Andre Agassi was a riveting figure. I mean, whether you liked him or not. And then, as we talked about, I think on one of last week's shows, Lubie, Agassi actually got better after he had a giant fall from grace. He was this flashy performer, but he hadn't really accomplished anywhere near what he would eventually come to accomplish after he all of a sudden was like sleeping on the streets of North Las Vegas doing meth.
Yeah, he was forgotten. And then he came back with a shaved head and a very different game. He became one of the best tennis players ever.
Man, you talk about a tough out. That was Andre Agassi. And the differential, and you'll see this in a lot of sports. Here's my sports analysis for the day. All of a sudden, I'm like Jay freaking Billis here. No, but I believe this to be true, and it's true even if you compete at any level, in whatever you're doing. But if you can win on your bad days, if you can find a way to hang in there and grind it out, it was great at this. The great Steffi Graf, Andre's wife.
She never
And
lost.
she was rarely off, but when she was in a hole, and maybe she's down like 5-1 in the first set, and you're thinking, wow, this girl is going to beat Steffi Graf. And the slightest opening, the slightest crack in your game, and she would just work her way right through that. And all the great champions do that. The minute there's the slightest gap, or as the great Andy Beyer called, and I don't know if you can say this anymore, the slightest chink in your armor.
Yeah, you can say
I didn't reference any Chinese players here. I want to wash that right out of the equation before we even get the first lawsuit, right? All of a sudden, we're going to have more people lined up against us than Deshaun Watson. My God. Is that all a fabrication by these women? What do you think, Lubie? I mean, does that seem preposterous that 22 women could come forward? I mean, I guess Brett Tesser, who will be with us next week, he has taken a week off here because we have so many things lined up on today's show, including Jim Larinaga and also Art Shamsky going to join us, fabled New York Met. Scoop Skolnick later on in the Miami Heat, cracking that 4-game losing streak and answering the question, what's wrong with the Heat? Now, did that win over Sacramento last night just wipe out any of your fears, Libby? They're back on top in the Eastern Conference.
It made me feel better. I don't know if it wipes out fears. But look, for people to
Sacramento stinks, by the way. The record was 27-49 after last
but
night.
what are the Sixers without Harden and Embiid? What are the Warriors without?
They are the Kings, yeah.
All three. I think the Kings are better. At least they played together. What are the Knicks? Like, the Knicks aren't far superior.
Staggering. Yeah.
And the Knicks have won 4 in a row, but I'm just saying, that's why, to me, I meant something, because he actually switched things up. He started Strus and not Robinson. He had Jimmy Robinson playing off the ball. He had Hero playing on the ball.
And Duncan Robinson. Better. Yeah.
So, no, but I'm saying Tyler Hero was actually running point a lot of the game last night.
Oh, okay.
So, and he had Jimmy Butler playing like an actual 2-3, playing off the ball. He was running around, cutting and stuff, and they were better offensively. So, they tried something new and it worked. Why can't I feel better? Now, am I running for no, the Celtics are still playing great ball. You can't forget about them. But it was nice to see their offense not look like ass for a night. To be brutally honest, it looked horrible the last 4 games. Even versus the Knicks, that fourth quarter was dreadful.
Oh, that was bludgeoning there. I mean, they're up 15. It was kind of like the second half of that Hurricanes-Kansas game, where you seem to be cruising, and then all of a sudden, you fold up like a cheap suit, as they say. Yep. And, it was a little bit troubling. I would think any team is going to hit some time during the course of the 82-game season. Are they playing 82 this year in the NBA? Yeah, I think so. You never know anymore. But during the course of a season, you're going to hit some kind of a slump. That was that was kind of a frightening one because of the fact that, as you said, Golden State, which had been going south for a while now, plays them without Draymond Green, without Steph Curry, and without Klay Thompson, and still wins the game. And then no Embiid and no Harden for the Philadelphia 76ers. So who are the 76ers if they don't start Embiid and Harden? They had nothing, right? They had a bunch of guys in there that you're thinking, okay, this is nice. They're getting some playing time. But what the hell is that? I mean, you would feel like you wanted your money back for the tickets if you paid to see that game. And so those two losses were disturbing. And then the Knicks come to town here, and that was the other thing. They were beaten in their home arena by the New York Knicks, and had led by 15, right, going into the fourth quarter. And that lead evaporated.
Yes.
It's tough to blow a 15-point lead.
That's bad.
In the fourth quarter of an NBA game while you're on your home wood against a lousy team that's going to miss the playoffs. Incredible. And so they beat the Sacramento Kings. Scoop Skolnick, nobody more illuminating about the Miami Heat or inside the Miami Heat, with the possible exception of the local writer here who's been there since the inception, and that would be Ira Winderman. We'll get into that a bit later on. But, yeah, I'm going to miss talking to Harvey about the tennis because there's some good stuff going on there. Juxtaposition at the top. The women's game is wide open, will be wide open at this point. And there are several American women that seem to be making a nice showing for themselves. And then the American men now are not such slouches. They're no longer just, there for appearance's sake. Mike Lubitz, some of these young kids really starting to come around. This guy, Jensen Brooksby.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with him. I mean, he came back from 4-love down in the third set yesterday to pull off a win against a veteran player, Augusta, what is the guy's name? Batista Agut. You know that guy?
Nah.
Batista Agut. One of these hyphen guys, that Al McGuire would have said, you always got to watch out for the teams that have the hyphens. And it's true in tennis, too. You got to watch out for those hyphenated guys. Basketball, I guess, college basketball has hyphens all over the place. More hyphens than asterisks. Incredible. Who started all that with the asterisk? I mean, that was a crazy... Oh, Fort Frick, of course. Rhymes with... But anyway, so going to be very exciting in terms of the guests here on the program. Art Shamsky, one of my fabled New York Mets from 1969. He was a huge factor that season, hit 300. And then get this, Lubie, in the World Series, they batted Shamsky fourth. He was a left-handed hitter, power stick, although he didn't have gigantic home run numbers because he platooned. With Gil Hodges at the helm there. It was the old carryover from Casey Stengel's platoon system. And Shamsky, who was only in the majors for like 7 years, he was much more well-known and became more well-known as an announcer than as a player, and was involved in Met broadcasts for many, many seasons. But magical year that year. And now, is he pushing a book or something, Lubie? What's the deal on that? How'd you end up getting Art Shamsky?
Well, they were trying... He came on with us like a year or so ago, and I think he's just pushing the same thing, but he's throwing out the first pitch tomorrow at the Nationals game. So he'll be down here. So they figured we'd get him back on, have him talk a little bit about what's going on with him. And
he's written a couple of books.
Yes. And just had to talk with him. I figured when I first booked this, when things were a little calmer, you always like talking. That's one of the names you've always thrown out there through the years, Art Shamsky. So when we had him on before, you enjoyed the conversation. So I was like, all right, sure. And they were supposed to have him on like a week ago, and it was like the world exploded. The Canes made it to the Sweet 16. The Dolphins were signing everyone. The Heat were collapsing. The Panthers were trading for every top star in the NHL. So I was like, I don't know if there's room for Art Shamsky right now. So
Shamsky's always good with me. I mean, any throwback to the '69 Mets is always going to be a popular item of choice here on this show, as long as I'm involved in it. What a great year. I mean, one of his books actually was about that season in New York when the Mets won the World Series. Impossible. I mean, it was a miracle Mets. Not only did they come from the clouds, but, they knocked off the Baltimore Orioles, who were deemed to be invincible in that World Series. And the Orioles they had unbelievable players on that team. Yeah, they were fantastic. And then you had the... Jets win the Super Bowl that year. The Jets with Joe Namath, 68-69 season, just unbelievable. And, of course, the Knicks had one of their greatest teams ever during that year. So New York was the epicenter of all the things that were happening that were good in sports, with the exception of the New York Rangers. So all of the teams winning titles that year, and that was one of Shamsky's books. And it was great. All right, the fallout. I mean, I'm finding some of this conversation about this whole Will Smith, the remake of Slapshot at the Oscars. what kind of lunacy? I mean, people don't want to believe anything anymore. I mean, it appeared to me that the guy, felt insulted. I don't know what possessed him. Was he on some kind of performance-enhancing drugs? Will Smith, though, was he on steroids or something? I mean, it's the
think
kind of move you
obviously-
make when you're not in your right frame of mind, is it not?
Oh, duh. Well, look, and you don't pay too much to the social world, and the fact that I didn't know she had alopecia tells you how much I do. But Red Table Talk, the show that was like Jada Pinkett's thing, that was a Facebook watch show that sort of got famous because they would have some people on. Shirley liked it, so I actually had a clue what was going on there. And they had Will Smith on a few times, and they openly talked about how she sort of sucked as a wife, and that made them magically have an open relationship. Like, people don't realize they didn't always have an open relationship. She sucked, and to save their marriage, they magically then had an open relationship. So Will was never.
Is there any chance I can talk the Mustang into something like this?
Good luck.
0.0.
My
Yeah.
wife. Your wife is very jealous, just like my wife. Like, Shirley will say, "What about us?" I'm like, "Babe, you're the most jealous human." When I called that woman my friend, and she was a friend, it was a half an hour fight over my friend. So I love you.
I don't ever mention any other women around
Never.
the Mustang. I mean, not even the cleaning lady. Maria's here.
No, why is Maria here?
Maria, who's Maria? How do you know her?
Shirley's
No, I've never seen anybody so suspicious in
no,
my
I was
life.
very
It's just absolutely crazy. Yeah, no, she's insane, right? Especially anyone that I might have had a relationship with in the past. I mean, that subject is absolutely taboo. I don't know how it is for you people, but definitely that way here. And I'm not a big fan of that. You know what I mean? People are people, right? You only live once. It's a short trip. I'm on borrowed time. Let's face it, right? People are checking out long before 70, 71. I'm closer now to 71. Than I am to that fabulous trip that we had to Las Vegas to celebrate the 70th birthday. Should that not be an annual affair, Lubie? Should that not be an annual affair? Or do you have to go like every 5 years? Because there's no guarantee
I don't know.
that you're going to go from 70 to 75. And the jump from 75 to 80 really is no luck. I mean, you have to figure that. Although I'll still be sitting here, in the house, barking out podcasts and shows and whatever we can do. And hopefully Jack will be, taking Ion Channel to the level of CBS sometime soon. And we won't have to do anything. We won't be out there peddling advertising or doing anything, bugging people. Hey, did I get my check? It won't be that way. It'll just be a big fat payday every Friday. And we'll be living in harmonious bliss with our spouses, thinking, hey, well, what a great guy, man, and what a terrific supporter of the family that this gentleman happens to be. Come on, Jack.
So a lot of people are saying when it comes to Will Smith is that he's had a lot of things bubbling up about their relationship, and supposedly all night they've been throwing jabs at the two of them, like mocking their open relationship, and he was laughing and she was laughing, and it was cool. And when Rock went after her disease, a lot of people feel like that was the thing that was like, okay, I'm done.
All right, one of the other ironies of this story, and I saw a clip on the news about this relating to it, because everybody's diving into this story, so we may as well hit it too. But one of the amazing things about it is that Chris Rock had actually done some kind of special where he hosted and interviewed a lot of women who had no hair, talking about, and alopecia, I think, actually came up, and they showed him interviewing a woman with a bald head who had alopecia. And, she was talking about how hair is so much a part of your identity. Lubie, I mean, you've had issues with this, correct? As it starts falling out in clumps when you're in college, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened here? Now, I think I have just enough hair to get out of this thing, thinking that I had hair my whole life.
I'm jealous. You're 70 and you still look about as strong as I am now at 39. That's actually impressive.
No, but the yarmulke got bigger there in the back. I mean, a big red spot in the back. Everybody thought I was wearing a red yarmulke when I used to do those announcements on a field at what is now Hard Rock Stadium. And so everybody has like the overhead cam, which one of the first rules I told Jack Namer is that no overhead camera, man. Because it exposed the fact that there's a massive bald spot on the back of my head. I don't know. Can I dip it in there and show it to the camera? It really doesn't matter. I mean, you guys that know me know that, hey, there's something happening back there, and it's not necessarily good, right?
Yes.
The vast sands of the Sahara Desert, right? Nothing but desert for miles and miles and miles. So, and people used to tell me, because every season somebody, would come up to me and go, hey, Defo, that bald spot's getting bigger. And I'm like, bald spot, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, I'm in the upper deck, man. I could see it from a mile away now. But the thing with Chris Rock was that women. He was doing a thing about how women and hair is such a big factor in people's identities, especially with women. And yeah, I mean, you would have to say that's true. I mean, what guy that was losing his hair at an early age wasn't traumatized by it at some point in time? It's crazy, right? And then you realize, okay, so what does it amount to? Nothing, right? I mean, can I say something, really hokey here? It's what's in your heart that counts, Lubie.
I mean, I don't know about that.
Right?
But
it's what's in your head, not necessarily what's on top of it. But I would recommend this, and I don't know how I would approach this because there are ways and treatments. Look at Bill Self, right? You can't figure out if that guy's wearing a hairpiece or not.
I mean, he is. You
And it might be the best hair weave I've ever seen, but one of the odd factors is unless he gets a haircut every day, his hair never grows. Correct?
It changes at all. I mean,
I know a guy that had a very bad hairpiece that was pretty obvious, and he would always pretend that he was going to the barber. And I'm like, well, what is he going to do? Iron that thing? A lot of jokes about it. People make jokes about hair all the time. It's not. Look, you have a cancer patient in front of you, and in this case, it's not cancer with Jada Pinkett.
It's not
Smith.
cancer. It's not AIDS. I don't know.
It's an autoimmune type of deal. Right. A term that became very popular during the pandemic, which is it over already, Lubie? I mean, they're telling me I have to go get a fourth shot. What is that all about?
It's not over. We just are going to live with it. Like if you do the things and look, I still get weird being in a crowd, around a bunch of people weirds me out. And it never used to. I never cared about being around people. Now, like when where did I go? I went somewhere and there were people. My nephew's birthday was last week and my sister went to like one of these like Discovery Zone jump room places. So I met them and I'm like, okay, cool. And it was spring break. And I didn't even think about it. There's kids everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now COVID happens. So I literally wore a mask the entire time.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? We're going to Greece at the end of April. Like, that's the last thing I need. I haven't gotten COVID by my estimation this entire time. I'm not getting it now. But that was me. Like, I wasn't like freaked out. I didn't leave, but I just did what I thought I needed to do to be okay. And that's the thing. I think that's where we are now. Like to sit here and stress about it, I think stupid.
Does seem like people have taken to the idea that it's not around anymore. Because I mean, a lot of things are changing, and you're seeing mask mandates being lifted. I don't know when they're going to take that off. The airlines are pleading with the federal,
I hate that.
Whatever it is, FTC or whoever makes this mandate to not have you have to wear masks on a plane, which I don't think is a bad idea, right? First of all, you don't have to see the other people, and then second of all, you don't have people coughing in your face all day, which is always a disaster, right? On planes when you have either two things drive you crazy now. It used to be that you were in the seat just ahead of where the smoking section started. Which back in the day when people could smoke on airplanes, there were only like 10 rows out of like 35 that didn't allow smoking. So, and I get sick, anytime I'm around cigarette smoke, especially in a confined area. Now, if it's outside, right, and I happen to breathe in a puff, actually, when a guy first lights up a cigarette and you actually breathe it in, it's almost a pleasant aroma, is it not? And then, 1 second later, after they take the second hit, you're choking to death. It's like, hey, can you put that thing out? Now, I hate it when somebody lights up a cigarette and it kind of wafts my direction at the beach. Really bothers me, right?
Yes.
Or when I'm on the walk of life and there's somebody smoking a cigarette in front of you, which is pretty rare because most of the people are out there just walking also. But, and then you walk in there and you're ensconced in this ugly smell and, the filth and the schmutz. It's just, who needs that? But but it used to be on airplanes that there were, the 11th row was where the smoking section started, and then everybody was smoking all the way back. So the poor schmanks like me that hated, to be surrounded by cigarette smoke, now you're in a contained little thing. You're actually in this little cylinder, and everybody's smoking, and there was no way to dodge it, right? The fact that they had a no smoking section was relatively meaningless. It's like the no smoking section in a casino, where there were two machines in there, and neither of them are ever going to pay a dime because they, for some reason, want you out there exposed to whatever form of secondary cigarette smoke and the possibility of developing lung cancer you can get. And weird thing too. I mean, that still freaks me out about our friend Howard Davis Jr., the boxer,
never smoked,
Olympic gold medalist, 76 team, never smoked, never drank, got lung cancer somehow. And you can't figure that he was around a lot of people who smoked, right? The guy was working out all the time. He was in gyms and places where it wasn't common to light up a cigarette. But that notwithstanding, we have to get to which probably going to be a very regrettable experience, although it's coming up this weekend. And that is, and you remember the scene in Casino, right, where the Japanese guy, the big whale, he won all the money, and then De Niro sends Rickles out to the airport there. They have a private jet for this guy because he's such a big player, and they tell him there's some kind of mechanical problem. So sorry, we got a room for you, champagne, they got robes, they got babes, they got everything this guy needs to be happy there. They bring him back to the Tangiers. And, of course, he starts out, he's betting nothing, right? He's playing Baccarat, which is a game that, to this day, me, Mr. Degenerate, I don't understand Baccarat, and I don't understand the table game, which a lot of people like, Mississippi Stud Poker. Have you seen this one? Mississippi Stud Poker. Now, one of the games that used to be popular in casinos, or somewhat popular, was Caribbean Stud Poker, but you never see that in any casinos anymore. Was that banned by some kind of legislation because it was such a ripoff to the player? You would be sitting there with 4 aces and the dealer wouldn't qualify and you get nothing, right? And, of course, you didn't put the $5 in the bonus slot because you decided, hey, you were getting robbed on that also. And so you didn't even qualify for what would have been like, a $10,000 payoff if you had just gone ahead and put that 5 up. So many ways to lose your money. I mean, it's just incredible. So with that in mind, all right, so the original premise for me going to Atlantic City last week was that I was going to go to Las Vegas, and I wanted to experience that first week of the NCAA tournament in a crowd, in an atmosphere where the people were just going nuts, and they were all about the tournament. And, of course, I rarely watched 2 seconds of basketball while I was in Atlantic City because I was betting horses the entire time. I had the games on, but it was in the corner of the screen. Well, once I'm into my horse mode there and I'm going screen to screen, you don't even really want to be around me. You don't want to be talking to me, nothing, because I'm just, I'm paying no attention to anybody except where the next post time is, right? Race going off at Laurel in 1 minute. Okay, let me see. Let me back wheel a favorite. Boom, I'm in. And maybe I should change my strategy on that because for the most part, it's been pretty costly. Although, you do have your days like I did where you find one horse and that'll get you out for the week. So, there's always a possibility that the next race is going to be the one that gets you out for life. And I'm always looking forward to that because when I do get out for life, I'm going to jump right back in. And that's what's happening here. Just an aside, too, because we were telling a story about how the Mustang hit this jackpot there in Atlantic City. And she picks up $10,700 on a slot hit. Which, the details are kind of weird because I was already ready to pass out. I'd plugged my phone in the bathroom, and because you can't find any outlets.
That happened to me this weekend in Tampa.
In a hotel, yeah.
What the fuck is the outlet? I'm like, over here.
Where is it? Yeah, it's like in the lamp.
I'm like, I don't want to go.
That's across the room, and then nothing fits in that outlet, right? I mean, you can't plug anything into that socket. You can't plug like the hairdryer in or whatever it is that you're using. But you certainly couldn't plug the cell phone in. So I plug it in the bathroom, right? Which for some reason is always the socket. The availability is good in there, and then they always work, and a lot of times you plug the thing in and you don't even get a charge, right? And you have no idea. Do I turn the lamp on? What do I have to do? Right? All of a sudden you're turning all the lights on. You're lost. So I plug the phone in there. I go back to bed, and I'm starting to fall asleep, and the phone rings, and, I know it's the Mustang. So, I mean, what do I do? I mean, do I really get up, schlep into the bathroom, and go, hey, how you doing? I knew she was drunk and, had been running around the casino just like I had all night long.
Yeah, she's asking for something. It's 100% what's happening. She's like, I need you to bring me this.
No, she might have been just calling to say, hey, are you in the room? Which she knew I was. I told her I was going upstairs. I had seen her before I went up to the hotel room there at Harris. And then the phone rings again immediately. And like I said, I thought, wow, I mean, something must have happened to this woman. She either insulted somebody, threw a drink in somebody's face. I mean, whatever she did, it can't be good that she's calling a second time. And, I'm not bringing down any more capital if she's out of money. She was up like $1,000 earlier in the day, and that had already dissipated. Wow. She pissed that away. So, sure enough, she's calling me to tell me that she won all of this money. Nice. And so we held on to it. We managed to come home with that. That was great. I ended up winning money on a trip, and it couldn't have been any better. We ate like kings and queens. Nice. Great restaurants. The vibe there is good. Jersey people are very friendly. I think you'll find that, Mike Lubitz. It's very friendly. Yes. you don't feel weird if you're talking to the other people that are at the table. Like sometimes in Las Vegas or anywhere for that matter right
Anywhere.
now, right?
Yeah,
You
I'm
say
weird.
hello to somebody, they're like, "What? Security? You said hello to me?" What? I mean, the world's got me sugar in that regard. But very friendly. Everybody's rooting for everybody else. I mean, I was talking to people. I always, enjoy being in that race book there at the Borgata. And everywhere I went, people were very friendly. Restaurants everywhere, boardwalk, people are saying hello. It was really a good time in that regard. So it was uplifting from a humanitarian sense. And from a financial sense, I mean, when do you leave, a casino road trip of more than a day with any chance of winning and coming back with more money than you're left with? Almost 0.0, you would
Well,
have to
especially
say, are the
since you
chances.
do the horses, which as much as you handicap, a lot of it's chance, and she
It's
does.
all chance. What are you talking about?
It's 100% chance. Even on a game, you can handicap perfectly and it still goes the wrong way. But most of the time, like the professor, the way he plays, he's up over the year,
Yeah.
60-70%. Whenever I've done a trip with the professor, he wins over that weekend because he plays enough the right way that his handicap.
He's a money management guy, too. He
Exactly.
thinks about what he's doing.
So that's what I'm saying. You do the two things that at a casino may be the worst.
I'm out of control, yeah.
You can't. Well, you just can't judge it. It's like it's horses, and then
Horse racing, you always have a chance. It's your opinion, number one,
yeah.
which is one thing I like about this form of gambling. It's your opinion, just like sports gambling is. And, there are factors that you can't control. I mean, many factors, including what juice is Bob Baffert using today.
There you go.
You got $1 million animal there, Bobby. You really need to stick a needle in that horse's flank? Are you kidding me? Todd Pletcher must hate him.
Like with a passion.
I bet if you grabbed like Todd Pletcher and said, "What do you think of Baffert?" I mean, Pletcher's kind of reserved in his comments anyway. I mean, not the most, lively of interviews. Very matter of fact. It's not like he doesn't cooperate. The great Todd Pletcher is probably the number one trainer in the world now. I don't know that anybody would dispute that. Baffert, it's not like he's fallen out of the spotlight, but a little bit of a tarnished nature there, huh?
Yeah.
He could be the A-Rod of the equine circuit. Bob Baffert, right? And the great thing, that was one of the great excuses of all time. I don't know how I got there. I have no idea. Right? Remember what was his original thing with Medina Spirit? That the groom was sick and was taking a steroid and somehow coughed on the horse, and that's how the horse ended up testing positive.
The horse's food, and then he ate it. But it was I was like, I don't even know if that.
Bob, I mean, just come up with something. Aliens from Mars got into the barn somehow and messed with the animal. But that was one of the weakest excuses I've ever heard in my life. And then he backtracked on that and said, "You know what? We did it."
Yeah, exactly.
The horse had a little corn on his hoof, and so we wanted to treat that. So we took some cortisone, and then we juiced him with some Subways.
Yeah.
All right. Just to make sure that it worked. Never good. It's never good. So anyway, you're in there with a shot, though, in the horses, and it's your opinion. And if you manage your money properly, which I am not inclined to do, I mean, I bet a certain amount. It's not like I'm a huge bettor, but, I'm betting enough that you could get hurt by most people's standards. If you don't cash a lot of tickets and you're going screen to screen, you're going to end up a loser.
Yes.
I mean, and it's not going to be pleasant. It's like getting hit in the head with a blunt object or maybe a surprise cold shot. A sucker punch from Will Smith, which still, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, is Chris Rock the Marvin Hagler of celebrities when it comes to taking a punch?
I know people were trying to call him out for just standing there. I'm like, what do you mean? He took it like a G. Like he literally saw a grown man coming at him, smiled the entire time, and then kept going. I'm like, he was making jokes about it. I was like, that's pretty gangster to me. Like you wanted to put
handled it very well, I would say. I mean, the joke was probably in poor taste. I would agree with that.
You didn't have to make the joke, and that's fine. But Will Smith took it to a way weird level. And what is Rock supposed to do? Start fist fighting the guy? Like that doesn't make it better. That'd be a lot worse.
Took a punch like a champ.
Yeah, it did like a G.
All right. So anyway, the Atlantic City trip was great, and then because Mustang won a jackpot. Now here's the thing, and it's right out of The Godfather. Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in.
Yep.
Now, did have a great time there. Do I want to go back to Atlantic City like right away, like this Saturday?
The next.
It's going to be beautiful weather here in South Florida. I love the beach.
Yeah,
I've been playing
okay.
tennis in the daytime. I mean, it's just been absolutely fantastic. The walk of life is like a walk through a Thoreau novel. I mean, just unbelievable.
For gambling is
You're thinking this
regimented.
is utopia, and even my local gambling turned out to be successful. My last visit, what was a home run? I mean, by local gambling standards here, and it wasn't like I stepped it up or anything. I went right back to square one. The Mustangs run on the slot machines, unfortunately, has run a little bit dry.
You may never want to get
Water.
It's kind of lifetime.
If that's the hit of the light, I mean, couldn't it have been the citywide progressive? That would have been nice for like 250,000. That's what I want to take.
Give me 10 grand right now. I'd be very happy.
It didn't hurt anything. That's for sure, Mike
thank you, man.
Lubitz. I mean, trying to get this thing off the ground here. It's been a few months, and it's time to make a run.
Yes,
But all right, so now, and this happened before, and it was costly. Where Mustang had won a smaller jackpot locally here at one of the casinos in town, and she picked up like $2,300 or something on that, which was fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You win $2,000 while you're out just having a little bit of fun. You have to feel pretty good about yourself and the day and the way it went. But that led to her getting a free entry in what was supposed to be a drawing for $25,000 the following week. It just happened that the timing of it was that they were taking all of the jackpot winners from either that month or the previous 3 months, throwing their names in a bin, and then they had a drawing, and it was supposed to be for $25,000. Now, is it worth going back like down the street to the local casino to take a shot at that? Yes, of course. Is it not? Okay, you know the deal. And me being a horse player, we were there way too early. Because there was no point in me waiting till like 7 o'clock when the drawing started to go out there and bet what, Yonkers? Which I had a tip on a horse at Yonkers last night. I would have to check the results here. I didn't bet it, but this came from the Godfather of Fun.
Okay.
So now, because Mustang won this jackpot, it happened to be the end of the month, and I guess I don't know. They have like invited everybody that won a jackpot, I think, through March, to participate in a drawing in Atlantic City, but you have to be there to be in the drawing, and there's $50,000 is going to be distributed.
Okay.
Among 7 winners altogether. There are going to be 7 winners. So they probably started out the first one, the draws for like 2,500, then maybe it goes to 5, then it goes to 75. Well, whatever it is, they're giving away 50,000. The last draw is probably, for 10, 15, 20,000. Mm-hmm. So would you go back to Atlantic City to take a shot at that? Now, how many people won jackpots? I keep asking. The entire time I was there, I never saw anybody hit a jackpot. The Mustang is the only one I know of that hit a jackpot. So it's not that common.
Okay.
So the numbers, I would think, are somewhat limited. A number of people that have hit jackpots on slot machines in Atlantic City in whatever it is. Let's say it's the last 3 months. So what would it be? Like 200 people? Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't think it's thousands. It shouldn't be thousands.
You never see anybody win. What are you talking about, Lubie?
It's like,
so quiet in there. I mean, and they're watching people play games. They don't even understand. That Hansel and Gretel game, that is like the dumbest thing, man. I mean, the only guy that ever hit it was Jersey Colin. He had like a string of breadcrumbs all the way to the food court. And, and the lady that was playing the game before was one of those, typical casino people that you see. Lipstick smeared above the top lip, and maybe an old, decrepit-looking woman who looked like she had seen her better day many years before.
God.
And she's slumped over a slot machine with a cigarette, and the ash was, just absolutely the entire length of what was a cigarette, and all the way to the filter. And she gets up from the machine. Jersey throws, his very first spin, hits the jackpot for like, 600-700 or whatever. Not a jackpot, but, the thing's just ringing and spinning and lights are going off. And she turns around to him and says, "Why don't you go to hell?" That was in Vegas, though. Jersey City, they would have applauded the fact, "Wow, I just got up from there. I primed it for you. If you care to grease me with a couple of bucks," right? Do you give that person a few bucks for priming the machine?
I don't know. I don't know the degenerate code. You guys have a whole thing that I don't understand. Actually, Andy Man was making fun of me he remembers the early days when I really didn't know degenerate code. So I have no idea. Maybe you guys.
Yeah, no, you're not inclined to grease anybody. I mean, you are my profit is my profit, right? I'm the one that suffered the pain before. That's not you.
It depends. If
And
you
there's
go,
some merit to that argument. I would agree with you. It's not like it's in general, you're thinking you should be a little bit generous because it promotes more good karma and good luck.
I get it.
That being said, I feel compelled to go back. I mean, you would never know if you don't put your entry in. You would never know if you were going to get called for like 50 dimes or some piece of it. And if somehow now you know what's going to happen here. We're going to go there and get bludgeoned.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up being a give back of like 3 of the 11 dimes we came home with.
Yep.
But if that happens, don't you have to just write it off to okay, we know this game well enough to know that you're not necessarily born to win when it comes to being a degenerate. You are born to lose.
Honestly, yeah.
But what if lightning strikes twice and she gets
I
a
know,
even
that's-
for like $2,500 or something like that? Is it not worth spending the $300 on Spirit Airlines and subjecting yourself to more Spirit Airlines travel, which went well last time, except for the scary part of almost missing the plane?
What time is this flight?
7:23 Saturday morning.
Okay, good. So you've learned a trick. The first flight in the morning is the move for Spirit.
Oh no, they'll be on time. It's just who was telling me? Somebody was telling me just yesterday. Oh, my son, who's taken a bunch of Spirit flights for some reason in the last year, traveling with a little bit with his family and with his wife, says that it's always that way at Spirit first thing in the morning, Fort Lauderdale Airport. That it's a mess.
Oh, insane! Oh God.
I guess because a lot of their flights must originate there, right? I mean, is this a hub for Spirit Airlines? I think so.
I guess in a sense, yeah.
Who else would accept them? No. There goes that endorsement, as they always say. All right, Art Shamsky coming up here. So I'm going back to Atlantic City Saturday, coming back Sunday night, and we're taking a shot. And if it costs me money, look, I'd be plunging on the horses one of those days of the weekend anyway. My new Degenerate Friday is literally Friday. And I've adopted the theme that if I'm going to conduct a show called Degenerate Friday, I should be a degenerate every Friday. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been sort of confining my horse betting at home to that, which having a lot of fun. There's some good people there. And a gentleman that I met there named Craig, who's a big fan of yours, by the way, Lubie, loves the show.
Hey, Craig.
And so I met him at the bar. It was the usual thing. Hey, you're a Defo, huh? And I was talking to the guy, and he appreciates the fact that I'm just a regular stooge like the rest of the people there and just out there to have a good time. So the Mustang comes up to tell me that she busted out the last time she was playing slots at this place, which was last Friday. She came with me. And he actually says to me as she's walking away from the bar, "Boy, it must be great to be with a woman who likes to gamble." I said, "Craig, nothing could be further from the truth."
It's great at the beginning.
It's never good. Never. Not one time. From the time she suggests to bet an impossible horse and you say, "I know how to do this. I've been doing this for years." So you stick 200 on some horse that runs up the track while her horse wins at 35-1. It's never good. I mean, to be with a woman who also gambles. Unless she just wins all the time. There are women like that. Mustang, lately she's been okay. She's been holding her own. But I don't know if it makes up for years of lost blood, right? It's one of the reasons I don't give blood is because I don't have much left. Like a quart low from all of this degeneracy. Art Shamsky coming up in just a minute here on the show. I'm Jeff Deforrest. We'll tell you more about Hialeah Park in a sec. We want to get to Art Shamsky. Jim Larinaga at 8 o'clock. Scoop Skolnick on the Heat around 8:20 this morning. So lots of good stuff coming up back to back to back. And we'll be back with more in a moment. On the Defo Show, Jeff Deforrest, Mike Lubie Lubitz here on Ion Channel in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 7:44.
Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. You're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. Good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, "Where should we go and eat tonight?"
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business, and the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752.
Women, you can't fake caring. Women can sense this immediately. You don't really care. You didn't really want to do any of this.
We now return to the Defo Show.
It was one of my favorite years of life, one of my favorite years as a baseball fan. That was 1969. I was selling souvenirs at Shea Stadium, and wow, you couldn't have asked for much more. We had watched a lot of suffering in the early stages of the Mets at Shea. I started there when the stadium opened in 64, and so the evolution and the incredible phenomenon that the Miracle Mets were in 1969 is always going to be beholden in my heart and, of course, all of my baseball thoughts. And that's why it's a pleasure to welcome this gentleman who was such a big part of that 69 Mets team. I batted 300 that year for the great Gil Hodges, and the Mets went on for an improbable World Series victory, first championship, young franchise that had really suffered early on. Art Shamsky joins us here on the show. Art, good to have you back again. I know we've spoken before. It's a pleasure having you on the show. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, guys. It's great to be with you.
Morning,
It's great to be here also. And, of course, you had a bestseller with a book called After the Miracle, and also are going to be a part of the Gil Hodges induction ceremony posthumously. Gil Hodges making it into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And many people had argued for years and years that how is this guy not in the Hall of Fame? And if not as a player, then certainly combined with his managerial skills. But, it's a big year for you. And, tell us first about what it was like in 69 with Hodges. You're in the platoon system, and then he bats you fourth in the World Series, and you perform, you were the second coming of Willie Mays in that World Series.
Well, you're right. This is going to be a big year. Every year is a big year when you're part of that 69 Met team. It's one of the few teams that, 53 years later, we still talk about. It was an incredible year for me, and all of us who were part of that team. All of our lives changed that October day in 1969, and I'm on shows like this with the great commentators like yourself talking about that team. But yeah, you're right about Gil Hodges. He was on the ballot 35 or 36 times.
Jeez.
And finally
Yes.
made it in and voted in. And this year in July he'll be going in, and I'm really excited about that. I'm really happy that Mrs. Hodges, his wife, is still around to enjoy that. And I know she's been pulling for these over the years, for him to get in over the years, and it's been a struggle, but finally going in, and I think it's well deserved. We would not have won without Gil Hodges. And also, thank you for mentioning my book After the Miracle. That's my second book. The first one was The Magnificent Seasons, about that year when Jets won, we won, and the Knicks all won for the first time. And then After the Miracle was really a 50-year anniversary about how that team changed all of our lives, and all of the members of the team were so close and still remain close, even though we lost a number of guys on the team. But it was very, very special for me to be part of that wonderful team that's still talked about today. And again, like I said, I'm still doing programs like this with the wonderful people like yourself talking about that year. It's great memories and what we did for the city of New York, and at a time that the world is upside down now. There's no doubt about it. But back then in the late 60s with the war in Vietnam and all the bad things were going around in the country, and the city of New York was going under financially, socially, spiritually. Everything was going bad, and we just helped people get through some difficult times, and they remembered it. And I've run into the kids who weren't even born, young people who weren't even born, who know about that team from their parents and their grandparents. And for me, it's always special. And I still get to do things that because I was part of that team. So it will always be part of my life, and so happy that I was part of that team, and in an era that had great players in the 60s and 70s. So all special times for me.
You and Ed Kranepool show up anywhere, man, and they have to put up the police barricades all the way, 3 miles down the block. It's fantastic how the people of New York still relate so closely to that '69 Miracle Mets team.
Well, it's not just New York; it's down here in Florida where I'm at right now. It's there's a lot of transplanted New York Met fans around, and they love to talk about that year, that team, and how special it was. Of course, we had the great players, Tom Seaver and Jerry Kuzman and Cleon Jones and Tommy Agee and Don Clendenin, and the list goes on and on. But there was so many things that happened during that season with Tom Seaver's almost perfect game, the Black Cat coming on the field when we were playing the Cubs, Steve Carlton striking out 19 and us winning the game, still winning the game. It's just a lot of things happened that year. People want to talk about it. And like you said, Ed Kranepool and I do a lot of things together. Eddie's a terrific friend of mine. And as a matter of fact, we're throwing out the first pitch tomorrow at the Mets spring training game. So I got to go out and work out a little bit, do some stretching or something, because, it used to be where I could stand on the mound and throw the ball 60 feet, 6 inches. But now I got to get a little closer. So it's more like 25 feet. So, just got to be, over the years, your arms shortened up a little bit, if you know what I mean.
I've done it a couple of times, and there's a lot of pressure associated with not being the next Carl Lewis, and doing something that is so embarrassing that you end up with the top player on SportsCenter that night.
Well, pretty soon I'll be doing it underhand, but we're going to 15 or 20 feet away, and hopefully the catcher, whoever catches it, can catch it barehanded. It will make us look good. But it's always a lot of fun. It's always great to be out there in front of the fans. Again, we just want to reminisce and talk to you about that year. The stories have been stretched out, which I understand. Over the years, I probably run into 100,000 people who told me they were at the final game we won the World Series. And I said, that's great. But then I remember that Shea Stadium held about 53,000. And I'm saying, well, either they were there or they weren't there, but it doesn't make any difference because they thought they were there with me. So, and I try to stay in touch with people. I'm on Twitter. I have a podcast that I do every other week. And when we got into the pandemic, I just felt like I wanted to stay connected. I just didn't want to drop out. And so it's very important for me to stay connected with all these people. And like I said, some weren't even born when I played, but they still want to talk about that team and that year and remember that great time in New York. So for me, it's very, very special.
Of course, went on to a long career as a commentator and even a sports talk host in New York City. Art Shamsky with us here on the Defo Show. Jeff Deforrest and Mike Louie Lubitz, streaming audio and video around the world here on Jack Namer's fine organization and platform, on Channel. What would Gil Hodges have said about the suggestion that maybe he go exclusively by sabermetrics while managing? I mean, where does today's philosophy and how to run a ball club fit in with what was going on in '69 when so many fascinating things were happening?
Yeah, Gil was not a manager to relied on sabermetrics or printouts of stats. He was a manager who managed by feel. That was the greatness of Gil Hodges. He got everybody involved on the team. He knew the strengths and weaknesses of his players, and that was his managerial style. I think he would have trouble today's game if someone was telling him you should do this, you should do that. That's why you don't see those kind of managers much anymore. It's all about the statistics and printouts. But he was a fabulous manager. Again, he knew the game. He knew the players, and he got everybody involved. And so when you talk about that '69 team, it's just not about the Tom Seavers and the Jerry Kuzman. It's about Jerry Grody and Ken Boswell and Eddie Kranepool and Ed Charles and Wayne Garrett and Bud Harrelson. I can go down the list, Ron Swoboda. I mean, go down the list with everybody. But that was his genius as a manager. And there's no doubt in my mind the Mets would have won more championships if he wouldn't have passed away at such a young age. And I do believe he would have gotten into the Hall of Fame sooner. But again, thankfully he'll go in this year, and I think it's really a tribute to his managerial style and his wherewithal to finally get in, because he certainly deserved it. He was a great player with those Dodger teams in the 50s, and not only had that playing career as greatness, but also that one year as a manager. But I'm really happy that he's going in. But I do believe that I don't think he'd be happy with the way the game is played now, but that's another story and another show for another time.
Well, it's interesting, too, because curious, I mean, can you really legislate defense and order teams not to shift, to one side of the field and put a
Well,
rule in that you have to play a defense a certain way? Doesn't that go against the grain of everything that competition is all about? I mean, wouldn't it behoove the players to figure out, hey, if I could slap one the other way, I've got a double every time, and straighten everybody out, keep them honest.
well, the theory now is that they'd rather have one swing and one home run, and strikeouts are not important anymore. I think for me, the game is not the same game that I grew up with and played, but they keep tinkering with it, and I'm not sure I understand why, because the game was a beautiful game to play and watch for so many years, over 100 years before, and so I don't understand the reason why. I guess I do understand. They feel like they want more offense, but in reality, there's not that much action. And I think fans are cheated because they sit back and they just wait for the home runs. Again, guys are just striking out 150, 175 times a year. And to me, it's just not the game that I remember. But it's still a wonderful game. It's still the beauty of baseball is that it teaches so many lessons. It teaches humility. It teaches you how to deal with failure. It teaches you teamwork. But I know there's a lot of people that are not happy with the game being played now, and yet I think the younger generations, the millennials, and people that were born, say, after 85 or 90, they like the home runs and that kind of thing. But to me, the beauty of the game was the strategy and the hit and runs, stealing, bunting, whatever it was, any way to win games. But it's different now, and so it is what it is.
Art Shamsky, our guest here on the Defo Show, and it's interesting too because we've had this discussion many times. When people start naming like the greatest pitchers ever, rarely do you have the name of Tom Seaver pop up immediately. You'll have them go with a lot of different hurlers that have been great over the years, but. And Seaver was larger than life, and he really was kind of the poster child. He and Nancy there, and we can still hear in our heads Bob Murphy on the radio. A friend of ours does a good Bob Murphy impression, Art, and he always goes back to when Bob Murphy would hold up the yearbook, and it would be a picture of Tom and Nancy Seaver, and he would always say, "And it's suitable for framing." And but I mean, people overlook how great Seaver was. I mean, what was it like playing with and behind Tom Seaver? Especially on that 69 Mets team.
Well, I got a chance to play against him before I got traded over to the Mets when I was with the Reds, and he was a terrific young pitcher then. And when I got over to watch him pitch and play behind him, you just realize how great he was. I played in an era that had so many great players in the 60s and 70s, and just in the pitching in the National League with Koufax, Drysdale, Marichal, Gibson, Perry, Ferguson, Jenkins, Carlton, and Seaver right there, and Tom was right there with him. And I do believe history will show he's one of the greatest pitchers ever to pitch in the major leagues. But he just was this finesse, an incredible pitcher on the mound. And when I got a chance to play first base, I saw it even much closer than playing the outfield. You watched him work these hitters, and he was an artist on the mound. And I used to call him a Van Gogh and Jerry Kuzman on our staff, Patton. They were two different kind of pitchers, but both great competitors. But Tom was just an artist out on the mound, and the years he had with the Mets were just incredible, and the other teams he played with too. But I do again believe that he'll be known as one of the greatest pitchers ever. He just was a fabulous pitcher, a wonderful teammate. Unfortunately, he passed away, and part of the book that we wrote, that I wrote after the miracle, was about a trip we took to see him when he wasn't able to travel. And really, it's a wonderful remembrance of our relationships, the teammates, and how it's lasted all these years. But again, he was a great teammate and a terrific pitcher.
We always hated it as vendors when Gibson and Seaver locked up, because the game would go 2 hours and 12 minutes if it lasted that long, and we couldn't sell a lot of stuff in the stands. Art, good luck with the first pitch. I would go with the slider. And, if they send out instead of the actual starting catcher, like the mascot with a big clown mitt, then you know that they don't have that much respect for your game anymore. But best of luck. I hope you throw a strike. And it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing some time with us.
Hope that the catcher doesn't go out there and just say, just throw it and let me catch it bare hand. So as long as he's got a glove on it, I'll make it. It's one fun thing. If anybody wants me to do a personal appearance or get in touch with me, they can just go to my website, artshamsky.com, and I'll be more than glad to get back to them. And again, guys, thank you so much for having me on. It's always great to talk baseball with you.
Appreciate
All
it.
right, thanks so much. Art Shamsky. Monster World Series there in 1969. We batted like .538. I think he had a bunch of home runs. It was really a terrific year for him and the entire city of New York. Great year for the city of Miami when it came to college basketball. And this guy's always been terrific with us, and we love having him on the show. What a story he was writing there at the NCAA tournament. Ran into a blitzkrieg in the second half against Kansas. The great head basketball coach Jim Larinaga joins us once again here on the Defo Show in just a couple of minutes. Of course, the Defo Show brought to you in great part by Hialeah Park and the terrific people there. We'll tell you about all the things going on at Hialeah Park after we talk to Jim Larinaga here in a moment. Now that. The time. 8:01. Poker is your game. You're covered in style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Catholic Health Services is committed to care that changes as your needs do. Our full continuum of services is designed to be there throughout your care journey. If you need assistance with daily living, post-acute care following a serious health event, or additional medical care at home, we also offer skilled nursing and palliative and hospice care. Your care needs may change, but our commitment never does. Catholic Health Services, South Florida's #1 choice for post-acute and end-of-life care. Visit CatholicHealthServices.org.
Jim Larianega, we love you, Jim Larianega. Coach Larianega, won't you do us a favor? Bring us a winner, one stinking winner. Deliver a winner in this town filled with losers.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Lubie? It's now time for the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Very pleasant good morning once again, everybody. Jeff Deforrest, Mike Lubie, Lubitz, the Defo Show here on ION Channel, streaming audio and video around the entire universe and many other platforms as well. And speaking of platforms, man, this guy was center stage in the Elite Eight, and it was looking real good there for a half. As I was thinking that this really looks like a prize fight to me, the way this game is being contested. And the Hurricanes had it going on. McGusty was red hot. Kept coming up with big baskets. The defense was great. A 9-2 run before the half. And we're looking at 36-30 Hurricanes over the #1 seed Kansas in the Midwest Regional in Chicago. And then the second half, it didn't go so well. But still, to be applauded, just a tremendous run.
Yes.
Hurricane basketball, I mean, very much in the spotlight. And the man that put him there, or helped put him there with his players, the great Jim Larinaga, joins us here on the program. Jim, first off, congratulations. Great year, great story. Even with the loss, you still made my Sunday. It was very, very exciting. How are you? And, what were the team's thoughts and reflections after the game against Kansas?
Well, thank you, Defo. And I would just say this. It was like a magic carpet ride. The guys had a great time. And what was so nice is how many people joined us. The support for this team was fantastic, from our university community, to the Coral Gables community, to the Miami community, to all of our alumni around the country. We had great fan support. Our students, our pep band, our cheerleaders traveled with us. And it was really a total team effort, not just my team, but the whole university team.
Well, that's good to see, and I know that's something that you've been trying to bring about. It's not easy here in South Florida, where you and I grew up in New York, and college basketball, high school basketball, huge there. I'm not sure that it isn't big here, but it certainly is not as easy to gain attention as it would be, say, if you were playing in Raleigh, North Carolina, or known basketball areas. So this was great, and it has to be a big asset for the program for you to have had that spotlight with your team and make it into not only the Elite Eight, but then looking like a winner after a half against the mighty Kansas Jayhawks.
Yeah, we played a terrific first half. We led 35-29. We finished on the 9-2 run, as you mentioned. And, basically, I think what happened is our guys started to feel a little bit of anxiety. And when we came out in the second half, we weren't sharp. Kansas took advantage of that. We had 3 quick turnovers, and they went on a run, and we were never able to recover. But quite frankly, when Charlie Moore and Cam McGusty came out of the game with a little over a minute to go, I gave them a big hug and just told them I loved them. What they did this year was absolutely amazing, starting with getting off to a 5-0 start in the ACC, beating during the regular season. We beat Duke, Carolina, Wake Forest, and NC State, the 4 Carolina schools. We went undefeated against them during the regular season. We ended up losing to Duke in the tournament, but I don't know if anybody's ever done that. I'm going to have to research the history of the ACC to see if anybody's just gone through the league beating all 4 schools. And to follow that up with winning our first round game in the NCAA tournament when we were a 10 seed, and beating Southern Cal, and then beating the number 2 seed, Auburn, and then Iowa State to get to the Elite Eight, the furthest any Miami team had ever been. And so we were making history every step along the way, and our guys will have these memories for the rest of their lives.
Talking with Coach Jim Larinaga, like he just said, helped to lead the Canes men's hoops team to their first ever Elite Eight this past weekend. Was a great ride, something we all were enraptured in, and we appreciate him joining us. I think this is the 3rd week out of 4 weeks, so thank you for finding more time for us, Coach. It's funny, as fans, we sort of, at least I am the most anxious fan ever. You can sort of see when the tide turns, but I'm always curious how a coach, you just talked about how you could feel it sort of turning and the kids getting anxious. What can you do in that regard? Again, they are kids, and at some point, Kansas, sort of just exerted their will. What are you saying to your kids at that point when you're trying to just keep the tide down?
Well, there are so many things that you can do, but you don't know which ones will work at that moment. I try to keep the guys loose, because once you start putting pressure on yourself, your mind wanders. And you start thinking about the score instead of the game. And the example is very, very simple. If you're up by 15 and you think, oh, we're going to win, and you relax your defense, you don't play quite as hard, it's very easy for the other team to come back. If you think, we're down 15, oh, man, we've had a bad day, we're just going to lose, then you're basically giving up. One of the beautiful things about this year, this season, and these kids is they never did that during the year. We fell behind by 18 to Syracuse, came back and won. We went up to Syracuse, fell behind by 18 again. We're down 7 with less than a minute to go, came back and won. But on Sunday against the Kansas Jayhawks, they were so sharp that they didn't really allow us to come back. Their defense was so good, and we could not make a shot. Sometimes, you get a good shot, but the ball just doesn't go in. Yep. on Sunday, we got anxious and we started rushing our shots. So by missing, that gave them a chance to get out on the fast break and score before we could get our defense set, where we had 5 guys back really trying to stop them. And once they got on a roll, there was no way for us to stop them.
Oh, man, momentum. I mean, it definitely changed. And it looked like we were rocking and rolling there as we came to the end of the first half. Jim Larinaga with us here on the show, head coach of the University of Miami basketball team. And the other Cinderella St. Peter's, they definitely, benefited from being in the spotlight there. But they eventually lost to North Carolina, knocked them out of the tournament. And you were extolling the virtues of the teams in the ACC and have to be once again vindicated, Coach Larinaga, with not only 3 teams in the Elite 8, but 2 of the Final Four field now. So, you have 2 ACC teams going to clash there in one of the semifinal games. But definitely a bold statement that the league was vastly underrated by the people that did the seedings and the selections for the tournament.
Yeah, I think we tend to judge teams strictly on whether you won or lost. And the teams that are winning, they're really good. And the teams that lose, they're no good. But a lot of times, early in the season especially, when the ACC was getting criticism, there were so many new players making the adjustment to the ACC, transfers, freshmen. And it sometimes takes a while for a team to gel. And for us, we had 2 transfers, Charlie Moore and Jordan Miller, who were making the adjustment from one college basketball program to the Miami basketball program. And it took them a little bit of time. And once they made the adjustment, then we were an awfully good team. Wake Forest, who I was very impressed with all season long, they had 5 transfers. So Steve Forbes had to really try to bring that team together. And he did it by, making a weaker schedule in the non-conference. And people said, well, it can't be that good. They didn't beat anybody good. But the whole point is you have different ways to develop your team to get them ready for the marathon of what the regular season ACC race is. It's a marathon of 20 games, grinding it out. And I thought the ACC was very underrated. I think we proved that in the postseason. And I'm not going to be surprised if one of our ACC members, Carolina or Duke, wins the national championship.
One of them is going to have a chance, that's for sure, as they play each other. I don't know. I mean, can you give us a perspective on that game, Coach? I don't know if you had a chance to really watch them play any of the tournament games, busy being involved there yourself. But, they did play that last game in a regular season. I would imagine, I don't know, is there some kind of revenge factor here that might be in play with Duke? Do you believe in that? And then North Carolina, they've won 16 of 19, but a little Jekyll and Hyde in the 3 games that they lost, sort of inexplicably, falling apart in games when they looked like they were on a roll. But what do you see happening there? I mean, this is a classic matchup here. In fact, the Final Four is involving or does involve 4 of the most fabled programs in the history of any Final Four.
Yeah, well, first of all, as I mentioned, we beat Carolina and Duke during the regular season.
Yeah.
We actually beat North Carolina by 28 points. Yeah. After that game, did anybody say, oh, yeah, but Carolina's probably going to make it to the Final Four? I don't think so. But what happens after a loss, your team looks in the mirror and says, okay, are we bad? Or are there ways we can get this turned around and start to play better? And Carolina did just that. And they lost very badly at home to Duke, and everybody counted them out when they went to Cameron Indoor Stadium to play the last game. Everybody thought Duke would smack them again to end the regular season, and instead Carolina turned around and smacked Duke. So I do think that loss actually helps Duke, because I think that takes the pressure off of them it actually gives them tremendous motivation to want to get even. And I think it'll be a great game. I think had Villanova stayed healthy, losing Justin Moore was a real blow to them. I think that it would be a tremendous Final Four. You know, Villanova's won a couple of national championships in the last 5 or 6 years. Kansas is the winningest college basketball program in the history of college basketball. Duke and Carolina are 2 of the top 5. So these are legendary basketball programs. It should be an unbelievable Final Four. And I'm very, very excited to just see what happens.
Yeah, great coaches, including a guy that did a terrific job, Hubert Davis there with North Carolina in his first year as the head coach. And is Roy Williams giving him some plays there? Roy's been presence.
Yeah, every game.
It seems like at every game. I mean, behind that mask, is he flashing some signals? You think, Jim? Because great year for Hubert Davis, and that should be a lot of fun to watch that Duke North Carolina game. As the case, Jay Wright and Bill Self. That's a classic coaching matchup, also.
Well, you have 3 Hall of Fame coaches: Bill Self, Jay Wright, Coach K, and then you have a rookie coach in Hubert Davis. Yeah. Hubert has done an amazing job, and the pressure was on him after that loss to Duke at home, and his team responded by just fighting their way into the tournament on a high note. They lose in the ACC tournament, and then go on a roll in the NCAA tournament. So Hubert's done an amazing job. Those 3 Hall of Fame coaches have done an amazing job, and it's just what makes March Madness so unbelievable. Our run and St. Peter's run was what a lot of people were talking about. But leading up to now the championship, they're talking about all these blue bloods getting to the New Orleans and playing for a national title. So I'm sure there's going to be a large television audience anxious to see who's going to cut down the nets and be dancing to One Shining Moment on Monday night.
Well, all of those coaches should take some dance lessons from you. And it was great seeing this run. Oh, where does this leave the program now? You had guys, as you said. I mean, I remember when I was doing Canes basketball games, they had a guy named Steve Frazier, who was a New York legend, and he was at school for 6 years because of medical redshirt allowances that he received. Never was the same player after he injured his knee, but and that was unfortunate for Leonard Hamilton at the time trying to build a program. But where does this leave you, this run that you had? I mean, you've talked about how the landscape has changed so dramatically, especially with the transfer portal. Where do the Canes stack up as we look forward to next year, Coach Larinaga?
Well, we've got a lot of work to do. We did a lot of work in recruiting in the September, October period. In the early signing period, we signed 4 very good players. But we have 3 scholarships still to give, and we're actively pursuing prospects, especially those whose names are in the transfer portal. We'd like to get older. We've got good young players, but having more than half our team in the freshman-sophomore class is not a good formula for success in the ACC. We need to probably get 2 at least, and probably 3 transfers. And we need another point guard to replace Charlie Moore. We need a big man to replace Sam Wardenberg. And we could always use a tremendous three-point shooter to help us space the floor and stretch the defense. So that's what my coaching staff and I are working towards. We'll bring some kids to campus during the month of April, and hopefully have huge success in spring recruiting, kind of like our football program has done. Mario Cristobal and his staff have done a great job, and now it's our turn.
Sounds great. And you turned on the entire city here. Just a tremendous run for the Hurricane basketball team. somewhat Cinderella story, and we thought maybe we were heading for the Final Four there until that second half took place. But Coach Larinaga, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. We hope to talk to you again during the off season many times, and love having you on the show, and love what you did with the Hurricane basketball team this year. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. It's really always an honor for us to have you on.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Thanks again, Jim Larinaga. Focal point last night there in the Sacramento Kings bludgeoning by the Miami Heat, Larinaga, in one of the good seats there. And I still can't get over it. I flicked on HBO last night, and again, they had that winning time thing.
Yeah,
And the portrayal of Pat Riley, I mean, he really does. They made him look like Bobcat Goldthwait when he was in that scene in the movie with Johnny Depp, Blow. You remember that scene where he takes the hit of the pure Coke and he goes, "I can't feel my face." I mean, how do you portray? Riley was never like this. I
don't know
hippie.
And then I don't know Riley before he was the Knicks coach, and then I've seen him as the Lakers coach. So he was always the guy with the slick back hair, with the glasses, with the suits.
He invented a look. What are you talking about, Lubie? He invented a look.
I don't know how he was before then. So you were around LA at that time, so you would know if he was out and about and was like the cool cat, or if he was busted out. Like, I never knew. So I've been taking this series as sort of the gospel.
They made him out to be some schlep.
He was
some guy that you would see at a bus stop with a shopping cart full of blankets and paper bags. What are you talking about?
Yes,
unbelievable. Pat Riley. And you could not paint. I was talking about this last night. I was playing tennis with some guys, and Jerry West could not have been that much of an overt asshole. Is it even remotely possible? I'll have to run this by Scoop Skolnick when he comes on the show.
That's what I was going to say, is all these guys that are guys I knew older that they're portraying in this series are not like Jerry West was
bad piece, by the way, on the actor who's playing West. I mean, that is painfully obvious.
West doesn't even have a piece. I think West has a natural.
No, but they try to make him look a little bit like Jerry West, the actor.
But but
I mean, the rug that they put on this actor to look like supposedly like Jerry West, which he's too hefty to be Jerry West. West was never the guy with a big belly and sticking out there. I tell you who's great, the actor that plays Red Auerbach. And he's like on a bunch of TV series. I saw him the other day on some TV talk show.
He was on the commission.
With Seacrest. Yeah.
What the hell is
He's from Boston, man. Real good guy, right? And he said it was like a thrill of his life. Like some people would want to play like Julius Caesar. This guy wanted to play Red Auerbach on the show.
I think he's a Boston guy.
Big Boston guy, yeah, no question. He's great. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment. Scoop Skolnick of 5 Reasons Sports Network, one of our platforms, which you say we're doing very well on.
Yes.
Maybe that's why Scoop acknowledged that he'll come on our show here. Scoop Skolnick, Ethan Scoop Skolnick, who covers the Miami Heat. I mean, it's him and Winterman. That's it. It would have to be 1 and 1A, I would think, on knowledge, intimate knowledge of the Miami Heat and their most intricate details. And then, I mean, Scoop always surprises me, amazes me when he can name like the starting lineup of the 1987 Phoenix Suns. Where it wasn't like we said, "Hey, Scoop, can you name this?" It just comes out with it. And you're like, wait a minute, you named all 5 guys. I don't remember Alvin Adams. What are you talking about? Unbelievable. So he'll join us next, and we'll get into some conversation about the NBA, which is close to the playoffs here, Lubie.
Yes, we're down to like 5 games, I think, something like that.
I don't know that I've embraced the NBA season as much as I would have liked to have, Lubie, this year. Regular season games. I don't know that I had the patience to watch too many complete bell-to-bell NBA regular season games. I've seen my share of it, but, it's not like I zeroed in and said, hey, wow, the Bucks tonight against the Timberwolves. That's can't-miss TV. I don't know. How about you? I mean, you've been following the Heat, naturally. But I don't know that you've, spread your wings all over the NBA. All right, we're coming back. Scoop Skolnick, he's plugged into everything. 5 Reasons Sports Network joins us next year on the Defo Show. Always a pleasure. It really is. I mean, in all sincerity, to have Jim Larinaga come on the show as frequently as he does is just a treat for us and a real honor. And our thanks to Art Shamsky for joining us as well. So Scoop Skolnick next, and then we'll take it out the door here on the Tuesday edition of the Defo Show. I'm Jeff Deforrest. He is Mike Lubitz. Highly apart. Great place. I mean, unbelievable.
Yes, sir.
Wow, jackpot bowling. I mean, they should just have a bowling alley there and have Chick Hearn doing the old jackpot bowling show. Jackpot after jackpot being taken down. And I don't know that they have this whole idea they're going to bring everybody back in. But if they did, it would be a pleasure to go right back to Hialeah Park because it's in our hometown and it's absolutely in our ballpark as well. We love Hialeah Park and all the things they do. Casino is red hot. Food and drink opportunities are just absolutely delightful, including the best Cuban sandwich you can find. And that's saying a lot, Lubie, with Calle Ocho, right? And all
yeah,
the,
what that is. The fact
Hispanic
that the
influence.
Cuban is as good as any Cuban you've ever had is pretty impressive because usually places like that, the food's secondary. It's expensive one, which theirs isn't.
You know what it is?
Also, and
And
there's
you know this to be true. They have really good people managing each category of what it takes to be a successful casino and entertainment destination. So, like, the food guy is great. I mean, Dennis Testa on the ground, Steve Calabro
everyone.
running the casino. The poker room is extremely well managed, man. I mean, it's like out of a Bond movie in there. It's just absolutely fantastic. Yes, I am all in. And then the champion simulcasting room, I mean, devised and designed with horse players in mind. When the people came down there for the NHC contest that they've had, a lot of guys hadn't been to Hialeah in a long period of time, and they said, man, did they do a great job at this or what? Hialeah Park, champion simulcasting room, top notch. You're going to love all the aspects of Hialeah Park, including the great entertainment. So check out the calendar of events at hialeahpark.com and make sure you clear your social calendar at least 1 or 2 days a week, 1 or 2 nights a week, and take in all of the beautiful ambiance and all the excitement of the dazzling casino and all the things going on at beautiful Hialeah Park. I think I used a lot of superlatives in there, Louis, and I mean it. I really do.
They're all worthy.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic. I get excited talking about Hialeah Park. I get excited talking to Scoop Skolnick about basketball. That's coming up next here on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:26.
Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. You're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. Good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business, and the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Before you call your insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752.
Francois Lebec, you're on 940 Wins, 1230 The Zone. Good morning, Francois.
Listen to me one moment, please. You fat ass. Tired of the way you speak about the Canadians? We are good people. We're here vacationing on the beach. We bring our dollars here, and you're always putting down the Canadians, and me personally is sick and tired of your crap. And you're not losing weight. I saw you the game. You're fat like a pig. The other thing that I would like to say is that you're going to throw out some baseball. I will be there personally to boo you out of the stadium. We come here as good people, friendly people, nice people. We don't need you to speak like you speak, Jeffrey, the fat-ass Deforrest.
The Defo Show, featuring Lubie. We now return to The Defo Show.
One of our big fans, the legendary Francois Lebec, and I would think Lebec, speaking of Quebec, is going to be in town tonight because, if I'm not mistaken, having looked at the schedule yesterday, the conference-leading Florida Panthers are hosting the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
Which makes for one scary night in the parking lot, does it not? Can you say Canucks? Is that like a derogatory? No, Vancouver is known as the Canucks. Come on.
Yes, I
Did
don't
they
know.
change their name out of any kind of political
I don't know.
sensitivity? The Canucks are now known as
Vancouver
what?
is-
The Yaks?
Vancouver is the
They're
Canucks.
still the Canucks, right?
I don't
So
know
it
if-
can't be seen as disparaging to call these
I-
guys Canucks.
Or Canadians
But,
are nicer and maybe they're more accepting of things that we're not in this day and age. Maybe they're still accepting of.
I mean, holy Jacques Leperrier, though. I mean, the crowds, are bad enough during the so-called season here in South Florida. When you see Quebec plates, I cringe in fear. Never mind. I mean, it triggers an automatic road rage. Like, go back north, right? And a lot of different things come to mind there. Thinking about various, ways to say penurious, which would be cheap, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just strange, and I have, look, I want to like everybody, Louis, I really do. But, every now and then we'll be out there even at the Pompano Municipal Tennis Center there. And, you're playing on a court and you're hearing a bunch of, French Canadian being spoken, dialect of French Canadian on the court next to you. And one of your balls will roll over there. It happens, frequently, where balls are going to crisscross courts. And, a guy just looks at it, knows he's not playing like a pen 3, and sticks it in his pocket.
Oh, he takes it.
And you're like, can I say this? Hey, Frenchie.
Yeah.
You got a pen 3 in there? And the guy will say no.
They'll lie. He'll take it and then lie.
And, I mean, all of a sudden you see these guys are hitting 4 balls and you're down to 2. I don't want to say there's a bias there based on, some mishaps and, what would you say? A lack of considerate moves that have been made on the tennis courts. But, then there was the thing about the tipping and all of it. I shouldn't get into this. It's just a dangerous area. And at one time, being the front-running, phony that I was a Montreal Canadiens fan because I really liked their team. They were great. I mean, they were winning every year, and they really had, like, all of the best players. They were lined up, 4 lines deep of all-stars, right? I think Yvonne Cornway was like on the 3rd line and maybe only got in on special teams, the great Yvonne Cornway. So I like the Canadians. And, there were only 6 teams in the league, Lubie. There's naturally a Ranger fan. And then, you had to have an ulterior team because the Rangers, they were okay back in the day. But, they weren't great. And Montreal was absolutely on fire. But especially in the early days, I would imagine it's true still today with the height of the season here in South Florida and all of the snowbirds are here. That this Montreal Panther game will be a very, very hard ticket to get. It might be even the reversal of form for what we thought was the worst job in all of sports, and that was a scalper at a Florida Panther game, now eclipsed only by being a scalper at a Miami Marlins game.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, imagine trying to scalp tickets. It's probably easier to scalp tickets, and this may be true, to a Marlins spring training game in Jupiter than it is for a regular season game against any team besides the Yankees or maybe the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 teams that draw.
You get really good crowds at those spring training games. Like, I was amazed. We went to the Cardinals and Marlins when we threw up first pitches. And I looked around. I'm like.
Because there's nothing to do in Jupiter. Nothing. Zero. There are no beaches. Nothing. No, they have beaches. Very nice beaches there. They got that lighthouse, which is legendary.
It's really pretty there.
A lot of expensive real estate.
There's great restaurants. But, yes, it was packed. And I was like, these people take spring training seriously.
That bartender made me one hell of a drink there when I slipped him an extra $20 because the drink was going to cost me 20 anyway. So it's like, hey, here's 40. Make it a real drink.
Make it real.
And I remember I couldn't even find the seat on the way back. We went to that game with Mike Nyman, spring training game. The Palm Beach Stadium is pretty nice also, although it's really out there in the boonies, huh?
Yes.
At West Palm Beach Stadium, and who's playing there? The Houston Astros and the Nationals, right?
It's okay. So the Cards and Marlins share stadium. Then yes, the Astros and Nats share stadium.
Okay, and what shocked me when I went to one of those spring training games there with the Astros was how many Astro fans actually schlepped from Houston, where you would think around this time of the year. I know they're supposed to have some bad weather in the Midwest there, or whatever that is. Might be the Texas. It's going to be subjected to some wicked storms again today. Man, I mean, global warming? Come on, Donnie. You got to acknowledge it a little bit, right? Old Donnie Trump, right, who was in total denial on that. I don't feel anything. Nice and cool here. Yeah, well, you're sitting your fat ass in a chair in the Oval Office trying to sell some Goya beans. Get out of here.
don't feel anything.
I shouldn't be doing this. Somebody's going to come up and slap me right in the face.
I love that.
Some of our right wing brothers. I don't mean any disparaging words. Just using that as an example, right? Of the fact that this global warming. You would have to think. Didn't some giant block of ice just cave in somewhere where
the Arctic has been a disaster.
like a glacier fell apart the other day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a thing.
So yeah, got to be careful out there, and use sunscreen if you're here in South Florida. But anyway, if you're here in South Florida, it's going to be crash cars. Will it be like the West Islip Speedway at what do they call the arena in Sunrise now? I don't even know.
Oh,
Scoop would go.
what is it named? That's a great
What is the name of the? It's like the Living Truth Arena. What is that place out in Sunrise called now?
It's called Fla Live. Fla Live or FLA Live.
Florida Live. And what does that represent? One of your networks now that you have established? I mean, are you now sponsoring arenas, Ethan?
I think it represents that they couldn't find an actual sponsor. So
okay.
Oh, no.
Nobody wanted a piece of this team. Unbelievable. They're in first place. Pretty incredible. We have a $500 bet, approximately. It's like dinner for four at Runway 84 with one of your former contemporaries, the Gambling Gourmet, Mike Mayo. He does not believe that the Panthers will win a first-round playoff series this year.
Well, Mike is scarred. Actually, I was around Mike. I was around Mike for the '96 run.
Yes,
but we both got a little older, and since then. So yeah, I mean, I understand the scarring that he's undergone here, but I think they're going to get out of a first-round playoff series, Defo. I think if it's ever going to happen, this is the year.
If it doesn't happen this year, I should spring for the 500 for the dinner for four at Runway 84. I mean, because what kind of schmuck would lose a bet like that?
And that's just appetizers at Runway 84. So go ahead.
Well, the mussels are free. They throw those right on the table there with the bread. It's great. Yeah. No, it might be 6 sticks. So, and naturally, we're hoping the Panthers win a playoff series, and that Mayo has to fork over the money when the check comes, because Lubie's not grabbing that thing.
No,
that's for sure. All right, a little bit of a scare there. I mean, what happened? I'm watching, kind of casually, the Heat lose to Golden State, and I'm thinking, all right, Golden State, maybe they're starting to get it back together. But there's no Steph Curry, there's no Draymond Green, there's no Klay Thompson, and you're getting whitewashed by the Golden State Warriors. And then this game against Philadelphia without Embiid and Harden.
Yeah.
And now, you had the fight. I mean, between Udonis and Jimmy Butler. I mean, what the hell is going on out there, Ethan Scully?
Well, I think it's a few things. I think one thing is that, they're ready for the playoffs to start, and they have been for a while, and I think that plays into it. I also think, though, and, the guys spoke to this last night. We've been talking about this on 5 on the Floor now for a little over a week, that I think the rotation became an issue. I think that, sometimes there's too much of a good thing, and I'm actually wearing one of our T-shirts. We have enough. And Eric Spoelstra.
That's deep depth, as Yogi Berra would say.
That correct. So deep depth. So the whole year we were talking about how deep they were and how they were able. One guy was out and they plug in another guy and they play well, and that's worked. And so we all kind of assumed, okay, well, then you're going to get these players back and you're going to be better. And that's just not how basketball works sometimes. There's sometimes that you pull a piece out and actually everything else looks cleaner. It's kind of what I think Bill Simmons called it the Ewing theory. If you go back to 1999 when Patrick was out, and others kind of plugged in there, and the Knicks beat the Heat and then they went to the finals. Sometimes that's just the way these things play out. I think trying to incorporate Victor Oladipo this late in the season, I think looking back was a mistake. I know that they waited for 2 reasons. One was, that obviously they want to make sure he was healthy, but he could have played earlier. I think the other reason was they had other guys playing well, like Gabe Vincent, etc. They didn't want to screw it up. But then when they finally did insert him, it did kind of screw it up. It's not his fault. He's just not ready to play at this level on a consistent basis. But more than that, his game doesn't really fit so well with certain players on the team. So now you're trying to figure out who he's going to be on ball with, who he's going to be off ball with. It got him out of sorts. Markieff Morris wasn't as big of a factor in that regard, but also you're incorporating him. And I also think then there's the other issue that there have been, and I reported this when I came back from Philadelphia, Jimmy's been difficult behind the scenes this year. But I was told the way it was put to me was he's difficult. Like all guys are difficult. Like all the stars here have been difficult when, things aren't going perfectly. Like, Dwayne could be difficult. LeBron was difficult. Shaq was difficult. Zoe was difficult. But Jimmy has been a little more difficult this year from what I've heard. And so I think all of those things kind of came together at the same time.
It's kind of surprising. And we're talking to Ethan Scoop Skolnick here, 5 Reasons Sports Network, covers the Heat like nobody else. I mean, with apologies to the great Ira Winderman, you guys are all over this. All right. It's interesting because I thought Jimmy Butler was kind of in a more favorable, more sort of, warming mood and welcoming mood this year. It seemed that way to me. You're watching him play with the Heat, and they seem very happy together, the old Turtle song. And then, we see this come to a head, obviously, very, illustrative of, I guess, the tensions you're talking about. What the hell were they fighting about, UD and Jimmy Butler? What did we ever get to the bottom of what triggered that thing and what the, resolution was, if there has been one?
Well, I know what started it. And again, when you say started it, what started it in that particular sequence? I mean, there are lots of things that happen, again, kind of sort of behind the scenes that could have played into it. What happened for that particular sequence was a defensive rotation and the feeling that Spoelstra felt like Jimmy was not doing what he was supposed to do.
He was Pavel Burry waiting at the red line. For a pass.
Yeah, that's right. It reminded me, guys, of another incident that didn't keep the Heat from winning a championship, by the way, which was 2012 in Indiana, second round. I was sitting baseline on the floor when Dwayne did not run back on defense. He was basket hanging, and Eric, a much younger coach at this, we're going back 10 years now, and a much less confident coach, I think, at that point, kind of said something in a passive-aggressive way to Dwayne when he came back, and Dwayne went off on him. And, some of it was caught on camera. Some of it, Brian Windhorst and I heard. ESPN actually looked for the video because I think they were going to play it if they found it. They didn't find it, which is that Dwayne said to Spo, the thing that wasn't caught was he said, "I made you and I'll end you."
Oh,
and Shakespearean right there. Yes.
wow.
Yeah, and Udonis jumped in to separate them and calm the situation down. And if people remember the circumstances of this, Dwayne was struggling with his knee. He went during that break. There was a 2-day break in Indiana. He went to see Tom Crean, who was coaching the Hoosiers at the time, and he also got his knee drained. And he came back, and he and LeBron, starting in the second half of the next game, without Bosh, by the way, had maybe the best 2.5 game run I've ever seen two players have together, and they eliminated Indiana. So they got past that. Now, this is a different coach. This coach knows he has the backing of everybody in the organization. He is probably the safest coach in terms of his job status, arguably beyond Bill Belichick, maybe in all of sports at this stage. So he can pretty much he can be stronger with it, and he went back at Jimmy in this case. Now, what triggered Haslam was something Jimmy said. Have we gotten to the bottom of what Jimmy said? No.
Oh, okay.
Will we? I will. It may take a couple of years, but we haven't at this point. But I think the fact that Eric went back at him, and then the theatrics, Eric picking up a clipboard he was not currently holding.
Yeah. Give me something to throw. Yeah.
Give me something to throw. I feel like Eric in that moment sort of recognized that he wanted that moment. I think at first it was passion, but then he wanted the moment.
Yep. We're talking with Ethan Skolnick, Mr. 5 Reasons Sports, also the guy we go to above all when it comes to the Miami Heat, at Ethan J. Skolnick and at the number 5 Reasons Sports. Okay, so why, and Defo was sort of alluding to it, why is Jimmy different this year? Is it the expectations are real? Like, this team is a championship contender. This team can win it, and he has tasted it and now knows what it is to get that close. And like, what's different this year about Jimmy? Because we had heard all the stuff from the Minnesota and the Philadelphia wasn't going on here. This is his team. This is his culture. And we've seen it. And now he's surrounded by a bunch of guys that have that same mindset. So what's so different this year as opposed to the last couple of years?
I don't think it's the Minnesota situation at all. I think he genuinely respects the head coach here, regardless of what we saw on the sideline. I think he generally respects the culture of the organization. I think he likes playing with the majority of these guys. So I don't think there's like a battle like there was with him and Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. I don't think that there's the issues he had with Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. I don't think there's the problems that, by the way, he and Dwayne together had with a lot of the younger players in Chicago. I think that this is dog days of his third season here. And I think Jimmy's personality is the type that over time can rub people the wrong way. He's had some issues behind the scenes with sort of, I wouldn't say staff, they're higher level than staff, the lower, but there's been some stuff that's gone on for the past 3 years. But again, I don't want to overplay that because I think it's more a symptom than a cause here. And I also, go back. I mean, I go back to Shaq's third year here. Okay. The first year was great. He was, the water bottles and all the rest.
Squirt guns, the whole
squirt guns was great, right? Okay, then I was actually with him for a photo shoot, him and Warwick Dunn of all people, at the Delano after that first season, and Shaq spent 5 hours bitching to me about Stan for not getting him the ball in the last quarter of that last game of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then the next year he kind of was instrumental in Stan's departure, and then they won a championship, so everything was fine for them. And then the next year he was completely impossible. It's just, these are ebbs and flows with stars. Dwayne was a little different because Dwayne could get out of line at times, but Dwayne was raised in this organization. Like, he knew how things were supposed to work, and he would always get back to it. And so even when LeBron would stray, Dwayne was the guy who always pulled LeBron back in, even though, like I said, Dwayne had his own moments. I mean, we see how Dwayne and Spo ended and how happy it was and how close. But there were moments, okay, there were many moments in the locker room where I would ask Dwayne about, we used to be able to get in the locker room. I used to ask Dwayne about like something, that happened in the game. He was like, and he'd answer. And then after he goes, "What the F are you doing to me?" He's like, "I don't want to call out Spo in this circumstance, but that's the problem." I'm like, okay, well, that's so,
it's off the record though, Ethan. It's off the record.
Exactly. Right. So I just think, Lubie, that they got to a certain point where they got a little tired of each other. But I also think if you look at last night, Bam, I mean, we talked about it on the podcast before we went in and talked to the players, and then the players basically confirmed everything we thought. Both Bam and Jimmy talked about the need for space and the tweaks to the rotation. That tells you this was not, their answers were not, well, Spo's going to do what he's going to do, and we're going to see how it goes. No, their answers basically made it seem like they went to Spo, said, that's how it came off to me. Because they were so on board with everything that happened and explained in detail why it was important to make the changes they made last night. That tells you that that's conversations that they've had. And so maybe that got them back on the right track. But I just want to be clear. They played a team. And you talked, Defo, about players.
Sacrificial lamb on the schedule last night.
Yeah, I mean, they played the Stockton Kings last night. Like, that's not. I mean, I don't know how this road trip will tell you a whole lot more.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the scores, and all right, maybe they straightened things out. And then I saw the opponent. I was thinking, they're like 27-50 or something on the season. Not very good, and one of those perennially bad organizations. Ever since they got hosed on the Vlade Divac on all of those calls in that series against the Lakers. They just, they've never recovered from that.
Defo, they haven't won a playoff. They haven't, won a playoff game. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2006. Since the last time
forever.
Since the Heat's first championship.
Mike Bibby, I think, was hoisted them up the last time they were playing. His grandson's probably in the NBA now. All right, a couple of things come to mind. Number one, I guess when you were talking about Jimmy Butler, it always strikes me odd that you have to be miserable to be good at basketball. It's kind of a weird thing. You would wish that maybe, he would find his way out of that kind of funk and, be able to compete without having to have this attitude all the time. And then we were talking earlier. I don't know if you've seen this thing, Winning Time, about the Lakers. Have you been watching it?
Yeah.
I mean, how would you characterize the portrayal of Pat Riley? We were saying that they made him look like he was Bobcat Goldthwait. This was, like a year before he became the slickest and one of the most fashionable head coaches in all of sport. I mean, could he really have been like this busted out hippie? as they're portraying him. And I don't know if you ever had contact with Jerry West. I imagine you have.
I did.
Can he be that big of an overt asshole as they're portraying him in this series?
He just
yeah,
man.
I think these are slight caricatures, but the
Riley thing shocked me. I couldn't believe that was supposed to be Pat Riley.
But he was kind of, I mean, he was a little bit of a hippie before he kind of turned to the right. You know, and he, from my understanding, he's turned back a little bit. I just, yeah, that's who he was. I mean, that's the whole thing about Pat. That's what makes his story so surprising, is that he is not, she never was Showtime Pat. Like, that's the whole thing. I mean, he was always hippie Pat or Schenectady Pat, you know, like Schenectady Pat is the Pat we saw, you know, kind of develop with the Knicks, you know, where he went back to his roots of kind of the toughness and all of that stuff. Showtime, you know, it felt like he was putting on a little bit of an act, but I mean, if you're going to get every, you know, if you're going to get, I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to. I mean, if you're going to be the king of Los Angeles by doing it, you might as well. Okay. I mean,
Sure.
You're talking about somebody who was supposed to be cast opposite Michelle Pfeiffer in Tequila Sunrise. He actually turned down the part. That's why it went to, I think Kurt Russell actually took it. Wow. I mean, that's the level that Pat was at. So you just go that way, but it's never really been him. And I think that one of the things that's been surprising to people in his recent Heat years is how sentimental he is. And sometimes that sentimentality has hurt the Heat. It hurt the Heat when he tried to make up for the Dwayne thing by signing all those guys in 2016. It hurt the Heat when he brought back the championship team in 2006. It hurt the Heat in the late 90s, where he would not. It took him 4 years to finally give up on the PJ Brown, Jamal Mashburn core around Timmy and Zoe. So he's a little different, I think, even than he used to be. I'm just surprised that he's still doing this. But
wow.
Well, but I think he got re-energized with the Butler build. And if they win a championship, I can see him moving on. If they don't, I think now that there's a Bam hero build, I mean, maybe Pat stays till he's 95 years old. But yeah, the portrayal is interesting. Jerry West, I've dealt with Jerry West on interviews and stuff. I think he's fascinating. I mean, he's like, to me, he's like a top 20 fascinating character in NBA history. But if you talk to people about Jerry West, the level of maniacal, the winning thing, I mean, you know, it is who he is. I mean, it's so that portrayal is a little much, but it's consistent with stuff that I've heard.
That's interesting.
Has Riley made any comments about the portrayal that you picked up on, Ethan? 5 reasons.
I have not. I'm going to work on two
not
things.
Particularly
Riley
flattering.
On his portrayal. You know what? Maybe that's what Jimmy said to Spo. Jimmy's like, the boss looks ridiculous.
What Riley looked like?
Winning time. That's what it was.
Well, we know that Magic, he might have been rivaling Wilt Chamberlain in terms of sexual experience. I mean, so that was a great part of the thing, too. All right, it's getting tight there, Ethan Skolnick. It looked like cruise control for the Heat. They could pick their number wherever they wanted to end up and probably be the number 1 seed. Eastern Conference. Now I believe there are 3 teams as of today that are all 1 game behind.
Yeah.
And all very capable. Chicago's kind of fallen off the pace a little bit, 4.5 back. But what's going to happen in the East, and how important is it to be in a particular position, in your opinion, Ethan Skolnick, for the Heat to have success in the playoffs?
I think there are 4.5 teams that could get to the finals. I think that the 4 that are in the top 4 right now, and I think Brooklyn is the wild card. You just don't know. I think Chicago has slipped because Chicago should have slipped. I think Cleveland is a year away or 2, and now they've got a bunch of injuries. Toronto's a good story. I took the over this year on them. I've already cashed that, but like,
nice.
Yeah,
but degenerate. Who knew? Ethan Skolnick, Mr. Clean Cut, is playing over-unders on seasonal propositions. I love it.
Things happen. Well, the Heat, by the way, can go over. They're over. They need 1 more win. Their over was 48.5, so they're at 48 right now. I informed a Heat executive that of last night. He said, "Don't tell me that." Yeah. I mean, I think that if you look at it, there's really 4.5 teams. I think those 4 teams are kind of jockeying not to get the half team in the first round right now.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty clear, but they're all flawed in their own way. And that's why, you know, this thing is open, and that's why you can tinker doing the way that Spo's doing now, because you have to get, as he said, to a little bit of a higher level. I think the most significant thing that happened yesterday, other than Toronto winning that game late, which was helpful to the Heat against Boston, is that Boston lost Robert Williams, and this is a really unsung player this year who, in my view, was top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh wow!
And really, really, really allowed that team to flourish the last 2 months. He does a lot of the things that Bam does on defense. He's been huge for them, and he had surgery on his knee, and you may be looking second round, maybe, that he would be back. That changes their dynamic a lot. So I feel like that hurts Boston. Philadelphia, look, here's the thing with Philly, okay? Are Harden and Embiid going to get all these calls in the playoffs? Because if they can't, that team can't function without taking 50 free throws. So like, are they going to get those calls? And then, so I still view it as, of those 4, that Milwaukee is the one to watch. They're trying to incorporate Brook Lopez back. Their top 3, when their top 3 play together, though, they're very hard to beat. And that's a tough building to win in. They know they can do it now. I still think they're the favorite. I think regardless of which seed they end up in, I still think they're the favorite. And Brooklyn, I mean, are they going to end up the 9, the 10? Like, I don't know where they're going to finish or how far they get up in the play-in, but, we saw what they are. Like, they look dominant against the Heat. And then Kyrie finally played at home and they lost. They don't defend at all. So it's hard for me to pick them to come out of these. I would say my order is kind of Milwaukee 1 and Boston or Miami tied for 2nd right now in terms of who comes out of the East.
Well, and before we let you go, I wanted to jump out west because the Nets of the West were seemingly the Lakers, right? At some point they'll figure it out. They'll be there. I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Everyone. Sort of the assumption is, can LeBron really leave again? He's going to stay. Yeah. Would he? What is he staying for? The Anthony Davis, and a lot of Heat people said, look, of course, the 1 year they play the Heat is the only year the dude stays healthy. He's never been healthy before. He hasn't been healthy since. He's never going to be healthy. If you're logical and reasonable, like you were with your bet, you can't count on Anthony Davis. And LeBron's still LeBron some fucking way, but even that's got to sort of curtail. Like, is he really just going to limp off? He wants to play with Bronny. Bronny's an average guy, but he'll get there because of LeBron. But that's still 2 years away, at least. Like, is he really going to just limp off as a Laker and force him to get Bronny? Like, from what you see, you've been around the guy a lot. You've been around the NBA a long time. What do you foresee for the Lakers and LeBron going forward? Because to me, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a happy marriage.
No, I mean, I think they're going to try to move Westbrook in the offseason. And, it's more possible than it was at the trade deadline because he's a little closer to that contract being over with. But you're going to have to find a team that has a max guy that they're looking to get rid of. And there just aren't that many of those. I mean, the Heat are not trading Jimmy Butler for Russell Westbrook. So that's not happening. So I just think I think that'll be the first move. I think if that fails, then there has to be a serious discussion about moving Anthony Davis while he still has some value and trying to recoup a lot of the types of players that they traded to get Anthony Davis. Guys, but they're not going to get that level because they you look at all the players that the Lakers have moved to build this roster. Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. Like, there's players that fit better around LeBron than the players that he has now. I think if all else fails, then you could see LeBron force his way somewhere else. I know there's the talk about Miami. That only works. You trade him for Jimmy Butler. That's the only thing you could do. I don't know why the Lakers. I don't know why the Lakers would want to. To me, the Lakers are going to go young if they trade LeBron. Like, they're going to try to gut the whole thing and start over. It's just very difficult to do. You're talking about big contracts. You need to move big contracts to get big contracts, and vice versa. So it's a tough thing. I don't think he finishes his career with the Lakers.
Wow.
I always said, and I talked to him on his 30th birthday. I did a one-on-one with him. I can't believe how long ago that was. Where he said, I said, how long are you going to play? And he says, I can play till I'm 40 and I'm going to play with my son. He told me that 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've never believed that he was going to finish there. This going to Los Angeles was not going to Cleveland was a legacy move and a sentimental move. And an I'm a little irritated at Pat move. Like, that's what that was. Okay. And there was a personal thing also that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, he had to get out of Miami. But then
Was
LA,
the mob involved? Did he owe somebody money? A loan shark?
His mom.
I can't imagine he needed cash.
Always his mom.
Defo, we're both divorced. Have been divorced.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
Okay.
Me numerous times.
I'm not going for two on that, by the way. But I'll just say you and I can speak to each other on that one. But there were other issues that were playing in here. Los Angeles was a business move.
Yeah, media.
That's all it was. It was a business move. And even before Kobe, obviously tragically died in the crash, they were never going to love him like they love Kobe out there. So it was never about that either. So I always felt like once he got what he needed, I mean, he got to put Space Jam out. He won a Razzie, I think.
Unfortunately, yeah. Oh, he won an award for that. Yeah.
Right. So there really wasn't. There's really not a lot else. He's won the championship too. So at least he's one of the Lakers who's done it. I never felt that's the only place. But is he going to go play in Oklahoma City or Sacramento because his son is? I don't think so. I think he'll figure out a way to get his son to some tolerable market for him, and he'll go. And it won't be Boston, but maybe like a Philadelphia or Chicago or Dallas, or maybe not Dallas. He's probably can't perform in Dallas, but we know 2011. But I think he'll go to a market like that, and he'll end up finishing his career out. And will Pat inquire? I mean, why wouldn't you inquire?
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't lose on the ticket sales with LeBron. It's hard to picture him in Oklahoma City, where he's going to Billy Bob's Barbecue instead of Prime 112. So we'll see how dedicated he is to making that final move with his son. Scoop, always a pleasure. Ethan Skolnick, great stuff, as always. And it should be a very exciting finish to the NBA season. And then, of course, very wide open when it comes to the playoffs, especially on the East side, which seems to have, as you said, 4, maybe 5 teams that could win it all in the Eastern Conference. Thanks so much. We appreciate the platform there, 5 Reasons.
Yes.
Everything going well. It's a pleasure being a part of that. And thank you so much for being a part of our show here on Ion Channel today.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you at Runway 84. Tell Mayo.
If Mayo loses, you're in. You're in. We're inviting people. Yeah.
Tell Mayo I'm having the Franchise. All right. Appreciate it.
Would you say he's irascible? Is irascible?
No, irascible is a good word for him.
Yeah. He's very negative about the sports scene. You would think he was never a sports writer, this guy. Like, he hates all of the local teams.
I know. Well, I mean, if you've covered any of the local teams but the Heat, over the last 25 years, you hate the local teams.
No question.
That's how this works. So I get it. He's wrong about the Panthers, but I get it.
He's become a real knuckleball when it comes to sports. All right, Ethan, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's going to do it for today. And, wow, a lot of fun. Art Shamsky for you old school New York Met fans. That was great. And Jim Larinaga, always terrific. Scoop Skolnick, very illuminating, as always, about things happening with the Miami Heat. So Jimmy Butler, I thought he was looking like he was enjoying life at the beginning of the season. Must you be miserable, Lubie? See, you've subscribed to this philosophy for a long time.
Oh, but
you felt you had to be miserable to do a good job.
I was miserable.
Then I realized you just were miserable.
I like doing the but everything around it was frustrating. So it led to me being frustrating. Jimmy Butler, that shouldn't be the case. Like, he's making tons of money. He has exactly the team he wants. They've made him the leader. Like, the
certainly
record
respected. I mean, did they not pay him his homage? It's not like they're thinking that it's Jimmy Butler. He couldn't lead a team to a championship.
Well, that's what he did.
Really have taken to
finals. Like, he had everything he's always wanted. So that's what's weird for him to be miserable.
He's a bizarre type of NBA scoring star because the way I know they call him Jimmy Buckets, but doesn't it seem like he has like a really awkward game? Compared to, if you're watching like Jason Tatum and he goes flying in for a dunk from the free throw line, then, takes a step back 3, then there were 2 guys in his face, fading away to the left side. He cans a jumper from 17, makes a great pass, grabs a rebound. Butler doesn't seem to be doing that. I mean, it's almost like a Ronnie Cycli type of offensive approach that he has, right? Where it looks a little bit mechanical, doesn't it? I don't know if mechanical is the right word, but it's just
rough.
Awkward.
Like, he does everything rough. Like, when he's dribbling, it's rough. And when he's shooting, it's rough. And defense is rough. Like, it's not finesse. It's not pretty. It's strong.
The elbow to the chin always helps him get that little bit of space that he needs to leverage score one of those buckets in the paint. All right, we have to run. We're in overtime here on Ion Channel,
Yes,
and
sir.
we appreciate the liberties that they allow us to take with the program, including some of the things that we have to say. It's always great. For Mike Lubitz, we'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll go old school with Tony Segreto. That's brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants, Catholic Health Services. So we appreciate all of the people that are behind the program, including great people at Hialeah Park and Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. You saw the video there. Amy, a marvelous job of putting it together, and it really does, people, look like the brochure. So we look forward to being down there, and wow, especially with this gorgeous weather we're having this week and into the weekend. I think it's going to last, or supposed to be. If you're from out of town, you're coming to the Keys, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Check in on the accommodations at jimmyjohnsonsbigchill.com. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff Deforrest saying, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate what's happening with the program. As Lubie keeps telling me, the numbers are growing, which is always a good sign. And we'll see you tomorrow at 7 in the a.m. on the East Coast as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:04.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.